Georgia will see a very familiar face on the South Carolina sideline on Saturday night. Hey Dog Nation, I'm Brandon Adams. It's time for Know Your Opponent, presented by the Piedmont Bank. But before we get to that, a preview of the Dogs at South Carolina. My friends at Piedmont Bank also want to remind you that they want you to know your bank. Do you know yours? Well, if you don't, it's time to make the switch to Piedmont Bank because they understand that the banking business is fundamentally a people-oriented business. They want to know the challenge that you face with your business and everything else that you may have going on in your life. They've got branches all across the metro Atlanta area, so make sure you check them out today. Take a look at this website. It's piedmont.bank. That's piedmont.bank. You can get in touch with the Piedmont Bank today. Of course, a lot for Georgia to know, but it's a game against South Carolina on Saturday. But there's one thing Dog fans already know. Mike Bobo, the interim coach for South Carolina, is one of the most pivotal figures in recent Georgia football history. He was a good quarterback for the Dogs under coaches Ray Goff and then Jim Donnan. He was a longtime assistant under Georgia coach Mark Richt. And as I said, he took over for Will Muschamp when Muschamp in South Carolina moved on a couple of weeks ago. He's also got a long, deep relationship with Georgia coach Kirby Smart. And this week, Smart talked about the pathway that both these guys have traveled and what it is about guys like Smart and Bobo that make them want to be coaches. Here's Kirby.
I think you grow up around it. You know, it's like in your DNA. It's like every coach doesn't want his son to be a coach. He wants him to be something better. And then they end up being a coach anyway because that's all they've grown up around. So I know my dad never discouraged me from coaching, but he never encouraged it either. And Mike's dad would probably say the same thing. But, you know, it's when you see it, you know, kind of in your parents like it was in our two dads who grew up Highway 84, South Georgia football, a lot of great matchups, and Friday night being the most important thing in the town. It's just kind of, you know, it's in your DNA. So it was that way for both of us, and we're both competitive people probably because of our parents.
Smart has spent most of the week downplaying the fact that he's coaching against his friend on Saturday, but the truth is it really is a pretty cool story. And as far as Bobo's impact on South Carolina since taking over, first as offensive coordinator, now as interim coach, Smart says, yes, you do see some differences with Bobo in charge. Here's more of Kirby.
They're very different from last year. They're not hurry-up tempo all the time. They're not empty as much. They've gone back to some traditional formations. You know, they use a fullback. They motion you a lot. They formation you. They get advantage in the run game. I mean, they're not the same offense they were now, not at all. But they've morphed a little bit throughout the year as they've lost some skill players. You know, he's lost a lot of skill players that were weapons to get the ball to, and he has to find other people to use as he loses those guys.
As far as using someone new, last week South Carolina did that. Bobo making the big decision to play Luke Doty, a former four-star top 100 recruit from the class of 2020. Doty stepped in for Colin Hill, threw for 130 yards, also led the Gamecocks in rushing last week as well. And Smart this week talked about if it is Doty they'll see transitioning away from Colin Hill, what that means for the Gamecocks at the quarterback position. Here's a little more from Kirby.
A great athlete. He extends plays. He provided a spark for them in the run game that they didn't have. Missouri creates a lot of issues in the run game because they're in a five-man front. They play man-free. They play one of the toughest defenses to run against in all the SEC, so they created some problems. You know, when they lost Shy Smith, it made it tough because he was one of their best weapons in that game. So it was a tough sledding to run the ball, and I thought Luke brought some more energy. Colin obviously knows everything Mike wants to do, knows his checks, understands his systems, can do the run game checks, can make all the throws. He's got a really good arm and very accurate. So they're very different quarterbacks, and they complement each other.
Obviously, the Georgia defense will be geared up to stop whichever quarterback plays on Saturday. This is, after all, a revenge game for UGA after having lost to South Carolina in Athens a season ago. Clearly, Georgia wants to be at its best on Saturday night. It's Know Your Opponent presented by the Piedmont Bank. Enjoy the game here this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and we'll see you back next week at this same time. For more Dog Nation videos, check out youtube.com/DogNation.